Have you ever wondered when exactly they realized they lost you for good? Not when you stopped texting back, not when you unfollowed, not even when you walked away. The real moment, the one that leaves a mark, is far more subtle, more brutal. It's when the silence gets heavy, when your absence becomes undeniable, when they scroll through your life and realize you're not there anymore, you're not coming back. And not because you hate them, but because you finally chose you. Here's a hard truth most people never admit. The one who leaves isn't always the one who gave up. Sometimes he's the one who finally woke up. And if you're like many men who've been through it, felt that sting of betrayal, of being taken for granted, you might have believed the lie too. That walking away is weakness, that silence is surrender, that love means enduring chaos just to prove you're loyal. But what if I told you the opposite is true? What if stepping back wasn't retreat, but the ultimate flex, the final evolution? What if your absence could teach them what your presence never could? Most people don't get this. They think healing is passive. They think moving on means forgetting. They think peace is boring, but those beliefs, that's the trap. The reality is, growth is noisy in silence, powerful in restraint, and stoic love doesn't beg, it builds. This isn't about bitterness, it's about clarity, and once you see the game for what it really is, everything changes. You stop chasing, you stop proving, and you start glowing. So let me ask you, do you want to understand why they feel it? Now when it's too late, do you want to know the exact moments that haunt them at 2 a.m., long after you've let go? What it actually means to walk away not because you're broken, but because you're done. In this journey, you're not going to get another tired, move on, bro, pep talk. You're about to uncover 7 moments, sharp, unforgettable, and real, where they finally get it. The awakening they never wanted, but absolutely deserved. And trust me, the last part, it's going to hit so hard, you'll never question your power again. Ready to start this transformation? Let's begin. 1. When you start thriving without them. It doesn't hit them when you're quiet for a few days, or even when you disappear from their notifications. No, the moment they realize they've lost you forever is when they see you smile again, and it's not for them. It's that first glimpse of you in the gym, focused and fierce. It's when they hear you've been hanging out with new people, laughing, building, moving. You're not just going through the motions, you're glowing. And not the type of glow that fades under pressure, but the kind that's born from real transformation, forged in silence and solitude. At first, they'll pretend not to notice. They'll play it cool, as if your growth doesn't sting, as if seeing you rebuild yourself without their help doesn't touch a nerve. But it does. It touches the very nerve they use to control you. It rattles the ego that once believed you'd never be okay without them. You see, they never imagined you'd rise this high, this fast, this confidently. They expected you to collapse under the weight of your grief, to stall in your sorrow, to wait around hoping for crumbs of attention. But instead, you got stronger. You didn't just move on, you moved up. You didn't numb the pain, you turned it into fuel. This is what stoic love looks like. It's not loud, it doesn't scream revenge, it simply evolves. And that evolution is loud to the one who never expected it. They see you now, and it ruins the version of you they tried to box in. You're sculpting a new identity, one defined by clarity, purpose, and peace. Your mornings no longer begin with wondering why they pulled away. Now your day starts with momentum, your mind clear, your energy focused, your direction unshakable. And that's what terrifies them. Because healing was never supposed to be attractive. Growth was never supposed to look like freedom. They counted on you needing them. They never planned for the day you'd stop. And that day came quietly, without warning, like a curtain falling on the last act of a play they thought would go on forever. Now, they see the reality they never prepared. For you're not bitter, you're better. You're not lonely. You're elevated. The peace in your eyes isn't the absence of pain, but the presence of self-mastery. You've taken what was meant to break you and built a foundation from it. You're no longer emotionally available to people who think love is control or that apology is a tool to regain access. Your attention has become sacred, your presence rare. You are not the man they remember, you are the man they never truly saw. That truth, that clarity, that glow, it's their wake-up call, but it's too late to answer, because Stoic love doesn't circle back. It builds forward. They scroll through your photos, listen to your words, trace your digital footprints, hoping for a crack in the armor, but all they find is distance. You've replaced drama with discipline, tension with tenacity, insecurity with inner peace. You didn't just survive the storm, they now realize you became it. And this kind of energy, this kind of presence doesn't come from pretending you're fine. It comes from doing the work, real work, the kind of deep, painful, relentless healing that most avoid. And that's why it's magnetic. That's why it scares them, because it reflects everything they aren't willing to face in themselves. You've become the mirror they cannot look away from, the lesson they never studied for, the standard they now measure others by, and no one matches. Your growth, your glow, your evolution, they weren't supposed to look this good. And it's not about showing off, it's about showing up for yourself, finally, fully. And that presence, it lingers. Long after you've moved on, it echoes in the spaces you once filled, in the quiet moments they once took for granted. You didn't just walk away, you elevated, and that elevation became their reckoning. You've become a chapter they can't reread, a path they can't follow, a version of you they no longer have the vocabulary to reach. Because this new you doesn't explain, doesn't defend, doesn't dilute. This new you doesn't need revenge, because peace is louder, and nothing is more unforgettable to someone who underestimated you than your silence shining with purpose. They lost you the day they stopped valuing your presence, but they don't feel it until they see who you've become without them. And the man you've become, he doesn't look back, he builds forward. That is the moment it finally hurts. 2. When silence becomes louder than words. They never noticed the moment your voice went quiet. They didn't flinch when your texts stopped pouring in like clockwork. At first, they mistook your silence for sulking, assuming you were just giving it time before you'd break, reach out, and reopen the door they left cracked for convenience. But what they failed to realize is that your silence wasn't absence, it was presence, redefined. A sacred retreat from chaos, a declaration without noise, the kind of silence that doesn't beg to be heard, but demands to be felt. And that, right there, is when it starts to hurt them. Not because of what you said, but because you stopped saying anything at all. No more explanations, no more defending your worth. No more late-night conversations where you carried the emotional weight for two. You went still, not because you had nothing left, but because you finally realized they were never listening. You once answered every call, replied to every cryptic message, entertained every breadcrumb of affection like it was a meal. But now, you let the phone ring. You see the messages, you just don't respond. Because you've learned that silence isn't passive, it's powerful. It's a statement that echoes louder than any confrontation, and they feel it. They feel it in the pit of their stomach when they see you online and you're not looking for them. They feel it in the space between their games and your indifference. When you don't bite, when you don't engage, when you don't react, they realize you've changed. And nothing rattles someone who thrives on control more than the moment you take your energy back. Your silence is not void, it's volume. A loud, roaring, unapologetic reminder that you've detached, that their chaos no longer has real estate in your mind, because you've stopped performing for people who never clapped for your growth. And here's where Stoicism enters, not as a cold shoulder, but as a warm cloak of inner calm. You've shifted from needing to be understood to understanding yourself. From explaining your boundaries to simply living within them. Your silence has become a sanctuary, a force field, a sacred pause between who you were and who you're becoming. And while they may never say it out loud, they're scrambling inside, searching for cracks in your resolve, testing the waters with old tactics, vague stories, mutual friends sent to pry, sudden interest in your life. But the door stays shut. Because Stoic love doesn't perform for the crowd. It doesn't scream for attention. It simply is, solid, unshaken. You're no longer explaining your peace, you're embodying it. And the more you embrace this quiet power, the more they unravel. Because the person they used to provoke now feels unreachable. You used to be the one who needed closure, the one who asked, pleaded, stayed up trying to make sense of the inconsistency. Now you're the one who walks away from the noise with grace. No anger, no revenge, just clarity. And that's what kills them. Your peace. Because they used to feed off your storms. Now you don't even offer them a cloud. You used to overthink every response. Now you don't need one. You used to fight for them to see your worth. Now you live like it's obvious. And it is. Your absence has become an undeniable presence. A ghost they can't block, mute, or delete. It lingers in their mind, in their moments of doubt, in their scrolling, in their silence, because your silence is no longer waiting, it's final. A closing chapter written without words. It's the kind of silence that says, I'm not angry, I'm just done. And that done is loud, deafening, unrelenting. It hits them in the quiet when they realize they can't reach you. Not emotionally, not spiritually, not energetically. Because the man you've become doesn't sit in confusion. He lives in conviction. You're not seeking validation from the same hands that let you fall. You're not asking for clarity from the same mouth that gave you confusion. You are no longer reactive, you're reflective. You move with intention. You speak only when it adds to your peace, not subtracts from it. And this evolution, this silent strength, is what they never saw coming. They always thought your silence was temporary. A pause, a strategy. They didn't expect it to be your standard, your new language. The language of someone who has outgrown the need to explain to those who refuse to listen. And now, they sit with the consequence of your stillness. It echoes in their empty attempts to trigger a response. It burns when their messages go unanswered. It haunts them when they realize you're no longer watching, no longer waiting. You're just gone. And the part that stings most? They did. This with every lie, every manipulation, every time they ignored your truth and tested your heart. They built the silence you now wear like armor. You didn't go cold, you got clear. You didn't shut down, you shut it out. That's the beauty of Stoic love. It's never rooted in punishment, it's rooted in preservation. You preserve your peace by no longer allowing chaos to buy space. In your soul, you don't clap back, you close the book. And that's what makes this silence so unforgettable. It's not about them anymore. It's about you, your sanity, your self-respect, your sacred energy. And when they finally feel the weight of being unheard, when they understand that they no longer get to call you, reach you, know you, that's when it cuts deepest. Because they never thought you'd actually stop caring. But you didn't stop caring. You started caring about yourself more, and that's the shift that changes everything. So if you're sitting in your silence, unsure if it's being heard, trust me, it is. Loud and clear, like thunder in a quiet room, like a locked door that no longer opens. And if this truth hits you deep, if you feel seen, empowered, aligned, then I want you to double down on your growth. Let the silence grow stronger. Let your peace get louder. And if this video speaks to you, drop a comment below that says, Number 1, hit that like button and subscribe right now, because this is where your story shifts, where your silence becomes power and your presence becomes unforgettable. 3, when they feel emotionally replaced. There's a specific kind of pain that doesn't show up right away. It's not loud, it doesn't scream betrayal or echo with slammed doors. No, it sneaks in slowly, like a cold draft in a warm room, the moment they realize they're no longer the person you turn to. At first, they think it's a phase. They believe the silence is temporary, that the distance is strategic. They convince themselves you're just trying to make a point, that soon you'll come back around with the same energy, the same loyalty, the same open heart. But then something changes. You post a photo, not necessarily with someone new romantically, but someone new emotionally. Maybe it's a group of friends, a trip you never took with them, a moment they didn't create. You're laughing in ways they never made you laugh. You look peaceful in a way they never helped you find. They feel it in the gut first, a twist of something sharp and unfamiliar. It's not jealousy, it's irrelevance. And that realization, it guts them. Because they thought they had time, they thought they could come back whenever it suited them, that your heart was just sitting there on standby, waiting for their permission to heal. But healing doesn't wait. Growth doesn't pause for permission. You've started building something they never thought you'd find. Connection that isn't rooted in pain. Friendship that doesn't require exhaustion. Energy that doesn't drain you but restores you. And what they see now is not just that you've moved on, it's that you've been replaced, not out of spite, not out of revenge, but out of necessity. Because the space they once filled with confusion, with hot and cold affection, with conditional love, is now occupied by peace, by purpose, by people who see you and meet you with the same depth you once gave so freely. And this hits differently, because it's not a breakup that cuts deepest. It's displacement. It's watching someone else take your seat. It's realizing that the circle they used to sit in, the access they once had, has been revoked. They see the shift in your energy, and it terrifies them. You no longer laugh at their jokes. You no longer check their stories. You no longer orbit around their moods. You've built new habits, new relationships, new rituals that don't include them. And worse, you don't even post for their attention anymore. You post for yourself, to document your becoming, to celebrate your journey. You're not flaunting, you're free. And freedom looks damn good on you. They see you being listened to, really listened to, by someone else. They notice that someone else checks in without being asked, compliments, without being manipulative, shows up without being begged. They start to understand what they lost, not in theory, but in practice. They see it living and breathing in someone else's actions, and that's when it hits. Their presence is no longer essential. Their absence is no longer noticed. They used to be the first one you called with news, with excitement, with tears. Now they're the afterthought, the echo of a memory that doesn't even sting the way it used to. Your eyes don't search for them in a crowd anymore. Your energy doesn't stretch itself thin, trying to make space for them. They've become a past tense in a story that's still being written, and that is unbearable. Because nothing destroys ego like watching someone you thought would never get over you. Not only get over you, but get better without you. You don't speak their name anymore, not in anger, not in grief. You've replaced what they gave you in fractions with what others give in wholeness. And it shows in the way you walk, in the way you laugh, in the way you no longer check your phone hoping for their name to pop up. The emotional vacancy they left has been filled by something stable, something steady, something they never offered. And that kind of replacement isn't just a loss. It's a revelation, a reflection of all the times they underestimated your capacity to heal, to choose differently, to prioritize yourself. Now, every time they see you smile in someone else's presence, it's a dagger they placed in their own chest. They remember the moments they dismissed your needs. They remember the times they ghosted, manipulated, minimized. And now, those memories are their torment, because they're the author of their own irrelevance. You didn't erase them, they faded, because energy doesn't lie, and consistency doesn't go unnoticed. Stoicism teaches us that emotional detachment isn't about coldness, it's about clarity. You became clear on what you needed, what you deserved, and you went after it without looking back. That's not replacing, that's rising. And as you continue to elevate, they're stuck watching from the shadows, haunted by the reality that your story is thriving without their chapter. They're no longer part of the narrative, not because you cut them out, but because you wrote them out through growth. They weren't removed, they expired, replaced not by someone better, but by something real, by alignment, by peace, by the love you now give and receive without struggle. And the most painful part? You didn't slam the door, they just didn't realize it was closing until it was locked. And the key, it's long gone, because the person you are now would never unlock that door again. Not out of spite, but out of wisdom, out of self-preservation, out of deep, unshakable self-love. The kind of love that doesn't negotiate with the past when the future is calling. And in that silence, in that growth, in that undeniable replacement, they learn a brutal lesson. You weren't holding on because you couldn't let go. You were holding space, waiting for them to step up. And when they didn't, someone else did. Not someone perfect, but someone present. And now, they're watching the life they thought they could delay, the healing they thought they could interrupt, unfold without them. You're no longer the same man who used to break himself into pieces to fit into their chaos. You've become the kind of man who only entertains peace, who honors time, who recognizes his own value without needing a mirror. Stoic love never begs, it never chases. It stands tall in the quiet certainty that what aligns will remain and what doesn't will be replaced, not to wound, but to evolve. And you, right now, are the evolution they never prepared for. You didn't seek replacements. You simply found what they refused to become, and that is what will echo in their silence for a very, very long time. For when their old tricks no longer work, they always believed they had the formula, the pattern of re-entry, the perfectly timed message, the carefully worded compliment, the subtle reach-out that would reel you back in. And for a while, it worked. You'd get the late-night, "I miss," you texts, the innocent check-ins, the vague posts crafted just for you to see and feel something. They were fluent in manipulation, smooth in guilt-tripping, masters at dangling just enough attention to keep your hope alive, but never enough to make you feel safe. But not anymore. This time, when they tried to open the same doors, they found locks changed, codes reset, access denied. Because you're not the same man anymore. You've outgrown the bait. You've seen behind the curtain, and what once charmed you now feels hollow, transparent. They may still be playing the same song, but it no longer moves you. Not because you've hardened, but because you've healed. And healing has a sound of its own. It's the sound of not reacting, of reading a message and deciding your peace is worth more than a reply. It's the sound of deleting without anger, of watching their story and feeling nothing at all. It's stoic love in motion, the kind of love that no longer dances for attention but walks calmly into peace. And now they panic because the buttons they used to press no longer light up. The scripts that once drew tears or confusion now read like poor performances. Their tricks don't work, not because they've changed, but because you have. You're not here to be toyed with. You're not open to cycles anymore. You used to respond, thinking maybe this time would be different, maybe they meant it, maybe they finally understood. But now you recognize patterns and you respect yourself enough to break them. That old version of you, the one who confused, crumbs for love, who romanticized struggle, who waited around for someone to choose you, he's gone. And in his place stands a man who knows his worth without needing to prove it. When they send that nostalgic message, you know it's bait. When they suddenly remember a memory, drop a song, share a quote, you see through it all. Their tactics haven't evolved, but your standards have, and that terrifies them. Because once a manipulator loses control of your emotions, they lose their entire identity. They don't know how to exist in your life without the power dynamic. You've shifted from being available to being aligned. You no longer respond to chaos. You protect your peace. And when they realize that, they spiral. They up the volume. They get desperate. They try harder, reach further, say things they never would have said before. But it's all noise. Because true healing isn't loud. It's consistent. It's choosing not to entertain confusion when clarity feels so damn good. They try to appeal to your old wounds, but those wounds are closed now. You've sewn them up with wisdom, self-love, and time. They try to bring back the cycle, but you're already walking a new path. You no longer crave the fire. You've learned to love the light. Their sweet nothings no longer land because you've tasted truth, and anything less now feels offensive. This isn't about revenge. This is about self-respect. This is stoicism in action, the rejection of emotional turbulence, the refusal to be dragged back into patterns that once cost you your peace. You've become the man who pauses before reacting, who chooses stillness over stimulation, who sees drama not as a challenge, but as a sign to walk away. And that kind of clarity cannot be manipulated. You've raised the bar, and their games can't reach it. You no longer feel the need to respond to make a point. Your silence is the point. You no longer care about being right. You care about being free. And that is what makes you untouchable. When they realize they can no longer access your softness through guilt, your heart through nostalgia, your time through confusion, it shatters them. Because now, every time they try their old tricks, they're met not with anger but with indifference, not with confrontation but with nothingness. And that nothingness is louder than any argument ever was. They thought they could control the narrative, but now you write your own story, one in which they're no longer the main character. Maybe not even a supporting one, maybe just a footnote. Because that's what happens when you grow. You rewrite the rules. You don't chase closure. You create it. You don't explain your worth. You embody it. You don't fall back. You rise. And when you rise, you realize that the people who had power over you only had it because you handed it to them. You've taken it back now, with every non-reaction, with every boundary, with every decision to not re-enter the loop. You've become unavailable to manipulation, uninterested in confusion. You're not cold, you're clear, you're not bitter, you're better. This is your redemption arc. This is your emotional emancipation. And they'll keep trying because they haven't changed. But their tricks have expired, their charm has rusted, their strategies have lost their grip, because your mind is no longer complicit. You've unlearned the patterns, rewired the responses, retaught your soul that love should feel safe, not strategic. So let them perform, let them throw shade, drop hints, reach out. You don't need to respond. You've already won. You've already healed. You've already moved into a space so powerful, so aligned, so peaceful that their drama feels foreign now. You don't miss the chaos. You don't crave the confusion. You crave stillness, structure, soul-level calm, and you've found it. So if this truth resonates with you, if you feel the shift, if you know you're done playing games, if you've walked away from the old dance, drop a comment below that says, Number 1, smash that like button and make sure to subscribe to this channel, because this is your home for stoic love, self-elevation, and never looking back. 5. When they reach out and get nothing. There's a silence that breaks harder than words ever could. Not the silence you give when you're angry or waiting for them to notice you. No, the kind of silence that wounds is the one you give when you're done, when you've already made peace with your own healing, when you've rebuilt without needing their apology, their clarity, their validation. That's the silence they feel in their chest when they finally reach out and get absolutely nothing. At first, they test the waters with subtlety. A hey dropped into your inbox like it doesn't carry weight. A song shared with no message. Just a hint, a memory referenced casually, hoping you'll latch onto it like you used to. They're not looking to reconnect in truth. They're looking for access. They're hoping the door is still slightly ajar, that you've been sitting on the other side waiting, hoping, holding space for them. But this time, there's no answer. No typing bubbles, no late-night response, just a stillness that stretches into eternity for them. You've gone quiet in a way that doesn't beg attention. You've gone silent in a way that feels powerful. Because this silence says, I've changed the locks. I've rerouted the path. I've grown into someone who no longer allows temporary people permanent access. And when they feel this, they unravel, because for the first time they realize they've been locked out, not just of your life, but of your spirit. They start second-guessing, rereading old texts, analyzing your photos, your captions, your digital movements, trying to decipher if the door truly closed or if you're just playing hard to get. But this isn't a game. This is clarity. This is Stoic Love in action. The refusal to be baited by nostalgia, the discipline to guard your peace like a fortress. Because you've learned that reacting only reopens wounds, that engaging only invites old pain dressed in new sentences. So you don't respond, not out of cruelty, but out of growth, out of deep, sacred self-preservation. And this rejection, the one that comes wrapped in silence, not spite, is the one they feel most. It's not loud, it's not messy, it's not dramatic, it's decisive, it's dignified. It says everything without saying anything at all, because they know exactly what they did, what they didn't do, and why you walked. They know they ignored the signs, dismissed your efforts, laughed at your loyalty, took your kindness for complacency. And now they sit with that, alone, scrolling through conversations that used to feel alive and now sit lifeless in their inbox, hoping for a ping that doesn't come. And every time they check their phone, every time they think about sending another message, they're hit with that same cold truth. You're not there. Not waiting, not watching, not hoping. You've moved into a space where their energy doesn't reach anymore. Their tricks, their charm, their panic, none of it lands because you're no longer emotionally available to the story you've already outgrown. They may tell themselves you're just being petty or distant or bitter, but deep down they know you're not bitter. You're just finished. And being finished has a power all its own. It's not fueled by hate, it's fueled by peace. It's rooted in understanding that sometimes the most powerful move you can make is no move at all. You let them speak to the silence. Let them echo in the void they created. Let them feel what it's like to try to reach a version of you that no longer exists. You're not ignoring them, you're honoring you. You're choosing not to reopen the chapter they couldn't finish the first time. Because when someone believes you'll always be there, your absence becomes the loudest message they'll ever receive. They thought they had time. They thought your forgiveness was eternal. They thought your love was a revolving door. But love, when it evolves, becomes selective. It no longer begs to be held. It demands to be respected. And your silence, it's not a punishment, it's a boundary. It's the final stage of healing. It's you stepping into a new identity, one that doesn't flinch at the sound of their name, one that no longer writes love letters to the past. They'll try to reach out again, maybe with vulnerability this time, maybe with words that sound sincere, crafted to touch the parts of you that used to ache for them. But it's too late, because you no longer respond to familiarity, you respond to alignment. And what they offer, no matter how dressed up, doesn't align anymore. You've seen too much, felt too much, learned too much, and the love you give now is too pure to be wasted on people who gamble with your heart. So they send their message and wait. Hours, days, maybe they delete and resend, maybe they double text, but there's nothing. Because you're not watching the phone anymore. You're watching your life bloom. You're investing in relationships. that nourish, in goals that excite, in peace that protects. And that's what breaks them, not that you walked away, but that you never looked back. They reach out and are met with the reflection of who they were when they had you, careless, inconsistent, unready. And now every unanswered message is a mirror, every silence a reminder that you didn't leave because you stopped caring. You left because you finally started caring for yourself more. And that kind of shift, it can't be undone. They can't reach you, not because you're hiding, but because you're healed. And healing has made you invisible to the tactics that once lured you in. It has made you immune to the noise that once triggered you. They're not just reaching out to get you back, they're reaching out hoping the old you still exists. But the old you doesn't live here anymore. And when they feel that, when they finally understand that they lost access, not because of an argument, but because of a shift in your soul, they're left with the most devastating realization. They didn't just lose your love, they lost a version of themselves they only knew in your presence. And now that presence is gone. Not stolen, not withheld, just gone, like mist in the morning sun. And that is when it hurts, because there is no closure in this silence, no revenge, no final words, just a quiet that stretches on, echoing with all the chances they wasted. And now, every time they try to speak into that silence, they're answered only by their own regrets. You didn't block them. You didn't blast them. You didn't try to make them feel what you once felt. You just stopped giving them access to what they no longer appreciated. That is the essence of Stoic love. It doesn't retaliate, it rises. It doesn't chase, it chooses. And in that choice you've become untouchable. A reminder, a lesson, a reflection of what it means to lose something beautiful by taking it for granted. They reach out and get nothing. And in that nothing they hear everything. 6. When you no longer need closure. There's a moment in your healing journey that doesn't come with fireworks or applause. It comes quietly, almost imperceptibly, like a breeze that shifts direction, like a pain that no longer aches. It's when you realize you don't need them to say sorry anymore. You don't need the final conversation. You don't need the perfect words to tie it all up, because closure, real closure, was never about them anyway. It was always about you. And now, you've chosen to stop standing in the waiting room of what-ifs, pacing in the hallway of unanswered questions. You've stopped needing to understand their damage just to validate your own wounds. That's when everything changes. That's when the power transfers fully into your hands. They always believed they had the upper hand because they left things open-ended. They disappeared mid-conversation, ghosted with no explanation, twisted truths, and left you sorting through the emotional wreckage alone. They knew the power of leaving a door half open, of watching you knock in the dark. But they underestimated one thing: your capacity to heal without their help. They didn't expect that one day you'd stop checking the door altogether, that you'd stop hoping for footsteps, that you'd build a life that didn't include a single corner for them to crawl back into. That moment when they see you smile without bitterness, move without hesitation, love again without fear, that's when the regret begins to bloom in them, because they realize their power wasn't in the leaving. It was in the assumption you'd stay broken. But you didn't. You gathered the shattered pieces, not all at once, but slowly, quietly. You stitched yourself together with routines, with new friendships, with long walks, with therapy, with brutal honesty, with silence. You didn't need an apology to understand that what happened to you wasn't fair, but it also wasn't final. And that's what makes you dangerous now, because you no longer look back. You no longer scroll through old messages searching for signs. You no longer fantasize about what you'd say if given the chance. You've stopped rehearsing closure scenes in your mind because you've closed the chapter yourself. You've put the pen back in your own hand. That scares them because they built an identity around the idea that you needed them for resolution. that you couldn't move forward without understanding why they did what they did. But the truth is, understanding isn't required for healing. Ownership is. And you've taken full ownership, not of their actions, but of your response to them. You've stopped trying to decode mixed signals and started living in clarity. You've learned that silence can be louder than answers, that distance can be a response, that growth doesn't require permission. And now they see it. They see it in your presence, in your peace, in the way you've stopped reaching, in the way you've stopped wondering. You're not frozen in time anymore. You're not emotionally handcuffed to the narrative they abandoned. You're free. And freedom, real freedom, is when you can acknowledge the pain, honor it, and still choose to move forward without bitterness. That's the stoic love you now live by. Not detached in a way that denies emotion, but grounded in a way that doesn't let emotion steer you anymore. You've become the architect of your own peace. And when they finally check back in, thinking they can offer a few words and regain access, they're met with something they never expected. Indifference. Not hatred, not resentment, just release. Because by now you've realized that their closure wasn't the missing piece. It was the illusion. The real closure was every single time you chose yourself. Every time you said no to chaos. Every time you held the line of your boundary when it would have been easier to bend. You stopped replaying the past and started designing a future that made sense without them in it. You stopped needing to make sense of them and started making space for you. And in doing so, you healed in ways they'll never comprehend. That realization, it wrecks them. Because they always thought they had a window, a soft landing, a second chance. They didn't think you'd build walls where they once had keys. They didn't think you'd plant peace in the soil they tried to, poison. But you did. And now, the space they used to occupy in your life has been repurposed into something steady, something sacred. They reach out, expecting the version of you who still bleeds when they speak. But you don't. You've stopped needing their voice to validate your worth. You've stopped needing their side of the story to write your ending. And that kind of healing, the independent, unassisted, soul-deep kind, leaves an impact. They don't know how to handle a version of you they can't emotionally manipulate. A version who doesn't chase closure because he's too busy building a new beginning. You're no longer waiting at the threshold. You're walking in your purpose, and that's what Stoicism teaches us, not to harden our hearts, but to quiet them, to remove the noise, to find stillness in the storm. You've done that, you've become that, and now they sit with the realization that their absence didn't break you. It built you. And the you that stands here today isn't a man who needs closure. He's a man who creates it. So if this spoke to you, if you've ever found strength in walking away, if you've ever built peace from pieces, if you've ever become your own ending, then this is your sign to keep going. And if you feel that deep shift in your soul, that moment when you know you're no longer the person who needed them to choose you, then drop a comment below that says, Number 1, smash that like button and subscribe to this channel. Because this space isn't just for healing, it's for evolution. This is where Stoic Love lives, where growth is sacred, and where peace is permanent. They thought the silence was the end of the conversation. What they didn't realize is that the silence was the beginning of your revolution. You didn't choose yourself to prove a point. You chose yourself because you finally understood that you were never meant to be a lesson in someone else's immaturity. You were meant to be a standard, a mirror, a force. You were the one they could have grown with, but they chose to toy with instead. And now the space where you once gave freely is filled with boundaries, purpose, and wholeness. You didn't just walk away. You outgrew the entire framework they kept you trapped in. You didn't just survive their absence, you built an identity in the ruins of their neglect. What once felt like a loss became your liberation. What once kept you awake at night now fuels the peace you sleep soundly in. You are no longer circling their orbit, wondering what could have been. You're writing your next chapter, and this Time. It's authored by you, for you, and through you. They didn't lose someone ordinary, they lost someone irreplaceable. And no matter how many times they retrace their steps, they will never arrive at the version of you who waited. That man is gone. In his place is someone refined by fire, sculpted by silence, and powered by clarity. The one who no longer trades his dignity for attention. The one who no longer mistakes chaos for connection. The one who no longer sacrifices his soul to feel seen. You've become the calm after the storm. The proof that healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about building something so strong, so sacred, that the past no longer has permission to haunt you. And that's what makes this the most powerful love story you'll ever live. Not the one where they come back, but the one where you never settle for less than what aligns. This isn't about them anymore. This is about you, about the man who chose growth over drama, stillness over noise, and peace over performance. And if there's one thing they'll never forget, it's that you didn't walk away because you stopped loving them. You walked away because you finally started loving yourself more. That is stoicism in its purest form. That is stoic love. And that is how they lost you forever.